What Really Happened with your host, Mike Rivero. The history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
Welcome to our show. It is Monday, October 26th, 2020, start of a brand new week. Halloween is this coming Saturday, so get your little goodies together if you're going to be one of those households that allow those COVID-infected trick-or-treaters to come up to your door. And I don't think we're going to see a lot around here. The local homeowners association has put out this little thing saying, turn your lights on if you've got treats to hand out, leave your lights off if you want to be left alone. So we do have some of our grandnieces and nephews coming on over. So at some point we'll have to put the lights on there. Anyway, let's get into the news here. We got a lot to talk about. Mike is in our control room taking care of business. And we're going to do news until we run out of news. And then we'll open the phones for your opinions, observations, questions, and comments here. A lot of stuff going on here. Those poor people on the Gulf Coast, Tropical Storm Zeta is expected to intensify into a hurricane. It's down over the Yucatan Peninsula right now, but they're saying it could be hitting the Louisiana coast this Wednesday. My goodness, somebody does not like the United States of America. All these hurricanes, the California wildfires, the Colorado wildfires, the upper Midwest flooding earlier in the year, COVID-19. It's really been a bad time for the country, and that's without even getting into the political craziness that we're having to deal with here. Okay, now we're coming up on the vote to confirm Amy Coney Barrett as the new Associate Justice on the Supreme Court. They had a procedural vote Sunday night that was fairly close. But it did say refer the vote to the full Senate. That's going to happen tonight somewhere around 7 o'clock Eastern time. Fox News at least is going to cover the live vote. One GOP senator has announced he's going to vote no. It's going to be very close. It potentially could even be a tie, at which point Mike Pence, as the president pro tempore of the Senate, would have the tie-breaking vote. And I noticed earlier today that some of the Democrats were suggesting that Pence shouldn't show up because of all of his staff that tested positive for COVID virus, and we don't want those senators to be exposed. So Pence, you can just stay at home here. I don't know what would happen if there was a tie vote and the president of the Senate wasn't there or somebody wasn't sitting in that seat. But no doubt they're trying to get Pence to stay home and throw some Democrat in that chair to cast the tie-breaking vote against Amy Coney Barrett. But it has been a real circus. There's a lot of confidence that the confirmation is going to go through. Of course, I always get nervous when people are too confident. Getting into the elections here, early voting has already beaten 2016 with just 8 days to go. And Americans are heading for the polls in record numbers. This could have the highest turnout since 1908. And that means a lot of people are voting. And the early voting is already starting to turn Republican. Which is making the Democrats very nervous because it's only so far that vote fraud and election stealing can take you here. A story that came on out of Blabberbuzz, Early Voting Fraud Watch, Election Day is next week. Why is Nevada already counting the votes? And Michael McDonald, chair of the Nevada Republican Party, issued a statement. We join President Trump in his fight for transparency and accountability in Nevada's election system. It is real. This is the dirtiest, crookedest election in history here. Now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez basically was criticizing the long lines at the New York City polling stations, claiming it's a form of voter suppression. She said that she had to wait 2 hours to cast her ballot in the Bronx. Okay, now over the weekend, Biden had a couple of verbal missteps, and it was interesting. Earlier today, the Biden campaign said they were throwing a lid on it until Election Day. No more public appearances, but I was watching on Fox News, and Biden was giving a presentation in Pennsylvania, and somebody made the mistake of panning around the podium there, and it looked like there were about 20 people, including the reporters who were throwing the usual marshmallow questions at him here. But at one point, Biden was out there saying that he was going to beat George. You know, he said, we need to stop 4 more years of George, meaning Bush. He forgot who he was running against. I mean, this is really insane here. All righty. Pardon me. On the Maria Bartiromo show, Representatives Jim Jordan and Doug Collins confirmed the Hunter Biden laptop is the real deal, that Joe Biden is the big guy. This is not disinformation of any kind. It's not a Russian plot. And as far as everybody saying, oh, it's Russian this, Russian that, I keep coming back to that old saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I mean, we've already been down this Russian road before, and it turned out to be a dead end. A giant nothing burger that cost, what, $38 million they spent trying to find some way to link Trump to Putin here. And over at Revolver News, they have a story about this. Inside source is alleging that underage photos found on Hunter's laptop were of a member of the Biden family. And we are hearing, 1/3 of the images are the same underage girl, reported to be a niece of Hunter Biden. And apparently she posed topless in a lot of these pictures. In others, she's shown in suggestive positions with Hunter himself. And apparently the girl's family literally threatened Hunter Biden with the police if he didn't stay away from her. So anyway, the New York Post, which also has a copy of Hunter's hard drive, has reported the laptop has a vast trove of sexual videos and images. Now, these are being published by a Chinese TV station. They are quite pornographic. Actually, they're pretty gross and disgusting, to be honest about it. I peeked at a few of them. My concern is some of them clearly show Hunter Biden's face, some do not. And I want to issue a word of caution here that the Biden campaign and the Democrats in general are pouring all kinds of false and misleading information onto the internet and social media in what's called a poison the well operation to try and discredit the entire issue. So please be very, very careful. If you see a photo or a video and you cannot see the man's face, just trash it right then and there, because it could be a plant. Better safe than sorry. Anyway, there's another story regarding the niece. This is from the Gateway Pundit, where apparently Joe Biden and his wife were trying to suppress Hunter's actions with the niece. And of course, they're still out there, denying anything was going on here. WYOU reporter Andy Mehelshik tried to get through this, questions and controversy continue today about Hunter. And Joe said, there's no controversy. It's all a lie. It's the only thing that Trump has got to run on. Unfortunately, the pictures are all over the net, except for Twitter and probably Facebook and Google as well. And there's a double standard here. Okay, because Twitter is out there nuking the photos and excerpts from the Hunter Biden sex tapes, but they let that Borat Giuliani sex scene just go all over the place. And they were out there celebrating the release of this compromising photo, and it turned out it was taken out of context. He just removed his recording device for the interview he was doing with what he thought was a reporter, and was retucking his shirt in. And that's the clip they took and said, see, he's fondling himself, inside his pants, which is a desperation on the cusp of madness, if you ask me here. Over at Rolling Stone, Matt Taibbi is out there saying, with the Hunter Biden expose, the suppression is a bigger scandal than the actual story. And I tend to agree. Okay, what Hunter Biden seems to have been doing is pretty sick and disgusting stuff. You all know my opinion on that kind of behavior with children. But watching these giant social media corporations just in absolute goose step, trying to protect the Bidens here, that really is the scandal. And Twitter and Facebook blocked access to the New York Post. They've cut down their accounts here. Twitter locked the 200-year-old newspaper out of its own account for a week. And it is a major, major scandal. And we should be paying attention to that just as much as we are to what is on Hunter Biden's laptop. Okay? Now, this is an interesting little story. CBS conducted a poll among voters to see if Hunter Biden was having an effect on how they felt about Joe Biden, and it turned out, yes, absolutely. And as a matter of fact, over at Google, there is a surge in search requests for, can I change my vote? The answer, sadly, is no. All right. Now, former acting director of national intelligence, Richard Grenell, is basically out there saying that during the final days of what conservatives like to call the Kenyan usurpation, Barack Obama's administration weaponized intelligence to go after Donald Trump. And Joe Biden was deeply involved in that plot to overthrow President-elect Trump. So it's just dirty all over here. Now, another one of the little goofs that Biden did recently, little verbal slip up there, he came out bragging about assembling, quote, the most extensive voter fraud organization in history, end quote. And of course, all of his defenders and campaign workers and Democrats are saying, well, it was a Freudian slip. He meant the most extensive voter integrity organization in history, but that isn't what he said. Okay, and yeah, I mean, it's not like they're trying to hide the election fraud. They really aren't. It's almost like, they're rubbing it in your face. They want you to know what's going on so that after Biden steals the election, you'll all riot in the streets and they can declare martial law and bring about the communist revolution that they desire here. Now, over in Nevada, we already talked about them with already counting the ballots here. In Clark County, the registrar unilaterally reduced the signature matching accuracy standard to just 40%. Now, that's not much. Even an amateur forger can meet that standard here. Now, down in Texas, an affidavit submitted by a Texas peace officer claims that a Houston judge and election staff are committing voter fraud. This was the story, we reported on it last week, using a stack of driver's licenses to allow people to vote illegally at a drive-through window. And there were photos attached to that showing the stack of driver's licenses. Over in Michigan, election workers have been told during their official training classes they should dispose of ballots, expel the poll watchers, and count challenged ballots. And apparently the way they're interfering with the poll watchers is they have to wear a mask and they have to stay back 6 feet for social distancing for COVID. Because if they're 6 feet away from where the ballots are being signed and worked on, they can't see or verify the signatures unless they bring binoculars, of course. But like I said, it's wide out in the open. And they're really getting desperate out there. Getting on back to Amy Coney Barrett, Vanity Fair ran an article warning that Barrett will execute women who get abortions. And this is in Vanity Fair. Women will be sentenced to death for abortion if Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed. Now that really that's desperation on the cusp of madness right there. Last week, we talked about how the CEO of Expensify, which is a software company that puts out an expense management system for businesses, sent 10 million customers an unsolicited email claiming they're voting against democracy if they support President Donald Trump. Well, the backlash has begun because customers of Expensify are now canceling their contracts and their business with that company. So they're going to take a little bit on that. All righty. Now, according to Scoop, actually according to Axios, If President Trump wins re-election, when President Trump wins re-election, he's going to immediately fire FBI Director Christopher Wray. That's good news. He's going to probably replace CIA Director Gina Haspel and Defense Secretary Mark Esper. So the post-election purge is definitely on. Meanwhile, over at Facebook, they are planning for possible election unrest. And they're going to, under the guise of trying to calm election-related conflict, they're basically going to slow down the speed of viral content and lowering the bar for suppressing potentially inflammatory posts. And it sounds good, but I really think the same biases are going to apply, and it's just going to be another way of suppressing Trump supporters and conservatives while allowing Democrats, Antifa, and Black Lives Matter to go on doing what it is they're going to do. Now, over at CNN, you're going to love this one. Talk about pot kettle black here. CNN is warning that conservatives and Trump supporters are deliberately seeking to discredit Facebook and big tech ahead of the election. Well, CNN, Facebook, and big tech don't need the help of Trump supporters and conservatives. They've done an excellent, excellent job of discrediting themselves in the eyes of the computer-using public. So they're, big tech basically has seized control of the election apparatus, banning conservatives en masse, rigging their search results. They've been caught doing that, giving billions of dollars worth of in-kind contributions to Democrats and tens of millions directly to get out the vote campaigns in Democratic strongholds. Okay, let's take a breath here and get into COVID-19. And here in Indiana, for a while, it looked like we were going to miss the worst of it, but apparently we're in the middle of a hot spot here, and COVID-19 infections in Indiana have set a record. Everybody's wearing their masks, we're staying away from each other, and just trying to play it safe. And that's why I'm thinking this Saturday we probably will not see a lot of Halloween trick-or-treating. Over in Sweden, health authorities are refusing to follow the rest of Europe by imposing new coronavirus lockdown measures on their population, saying the people have suffered enough. They're dealing with loneliness, feelings of isolation. And despite Sweden mirroring other countries on the continent with rising infections, the government has held firm, saying they're not going to do the lockdowns anymore. They're just going to rely on people to police themselves with the masks and social distancing. Now, interestingly enough, down in Venezuela, President Maduro has announced that scientists in his country have designed a highly effective antiviral that absolutely cancels 100% of COVID-19 without any side effects. The drug is being presented to the World Health Organization for certification. You'll never see it here in this country, of course, because they want your money to go to the American pharmaceutical corporations. Another story here, this is coming out of Great Britain in Daily Mail. Apparently, dementia patients who are in these nursing homes that are being locked down are being given archaic and dangerous antipsychotic drugs to keep them sedated during the lockdown. Unfortunately, these drugs are very, very dangerous. And apparently there was one grandmother, 86 years old, died 6 weeks after starting this medication. I'm sure they're going to put down that she died of the coronavirus, but experts are saying this medication carries risks of premature death, and it's supposed to be used to treat behavior and symptoms, including aggression and agitation. All right, Megyn Kelly is joining the backlash against California Governor Newsom's Thanksgiving insanity. Newsom is out there saying that families need to celebrate outside, they need to wear masks when not eating, and limit their time together to just 2 hours. And a lot of people are excoriating him for that. They're really suffering pandemic fatigue. Okay, we got to take a break for some commercials, and we'll be back with more news after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and as you probably noticed over the commercial break, if you were listening to the commercials, the Republic Broadcasting Network control room is running on basically baling wire and duct tape, and we need your help to sort of bring our equipment back up to a more professional level of broadcasting standards. And I don't mean to rag on our control room technicians. They're doing the best they can with very old equipment. It does wear out. I'm on my third mixer right here. So we need your help to keep going. And the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity, cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you here. Okay, let's get on back to the news and COVID-19. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows said yesterday that the country is not going to control the pandemic because it is contagious like the flu, and it's going to have to be managed with therapeutics and vaccines. And Meadows said in an interview with Jake Tapper, we're not going to control the pandemic. We're going to control the fact that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and other mitigation efforts. And Tapper asked, why aren't we going to get to control the pandemic? And Meadows said, because it's contagious, just like the flu. And they went back and forth on that. Okay, now, interesting little question. This is from the Daily Mail. Has COVID killed off the flu? Experts pose the intriguing question as influenza cases nosedive by 98% across the globe. Now, they're starting out breathing a sigh of relief because it was feared we would have a twindemic of COVID-19 and the flu. But the flu seems to be going down, and they're wondering if maybe the efforts to control coronavirus are controlling the flu as well. I have another theory, and that is that a lot of people with the flu are being misdiagnosed as having COVID-19. Remember, there was a huge amount of pressure, even financial incentives, to say COVID, COVID, COVID all over the place. So we really don't know that we can trust those numbers here. The fact that the flu infections have dropped by 98% tells you a lot. Speaking of vaccines, apparently over in South Korea, another 25 citizens have died from the flu shot. And the Korean Medical Association is saying the flu vaccine could potentially offset complications from COVID-19, but unfortunately, now the head of the Korean Medical Association is trying to halt the flu shot drive because of all the people who have died after taking the vaccine. And I think it's somewhere in the mid-40s is the total so far. All right. Another story here. This is from Natural News. People harmed by the Wuhan coronavirus vaccine trials are going to have to fight an uphill battle to receive compensation. Experts are saying that not only will they find it difficult to receive such compensation, but whatever they get is not going to amount to much. I'm sure we'll get a nice thank you card from the pharmaceutical industries for allowing that needle to be jabbed in our arm here. Turning to the international news here, France has recalled their ambassador to Turkey after Erdogan said Macron needs mental help over the Islamist terrorism label. So it's a little bit of diplomatic kerfuffling with these angry statements between Turkey and France. And relations between these two countries are already on edge, given France's strong backing of Greece's attempts to keep Turkish oil and gas exploration vessels out of its territorial waters in the eastern Mediterranean. So Paris has now recalled the French ambassador to Turkey in the biggest escalation to date as of late Saturday. It's not just bringing the guy back. It's considered a diplomatic giving of the finger to pull your ambassador out. We'll see what happens there. Over in Belarus, the police are using stun grenades to disperse protesters during the huge opposition march in Minsk. Gunfire has been reported. And this is even though most of the protests were supposed to be peaceful. Of anti-government demonstrators marched through the city's streets. And Law enforcement is using harsh measures to disperse the crowd. Today is Ultimatum Day in Belarus. Tikhanovskaya basically gave an ultimatum to Lukashenko, resign or face a general strike. Lukashenko refused to resign, and Tikhanovskaya, say that 3 times fast, called a general strike. Now, Minsk is denying that work has stopped, but we don't know. And we'll find out eventually here. Down in Turkey, Erdogan is dismissing Washington's threats over the S-400 deployment, saying Turkey is not a tribal state that could be pushed around, and the U.S. doesn't know who it's dealing with. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials, and we'll be back with more news after these 2 words. Welcome back to our show here. Now, over in Nagorno-Karabakh, another ceasefire has failed. They could have clocked this one with an egg timer. We're supposed to start this morning. It's already over. They're shooting at each other and accusing each other of violating the truce. Meanwhile, Iran is deploying their troops on their border near the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict because a lot of the fighting has strayed over the line into Iran, and that includes munitions here. Okay, apparently Azerbaijan is using banned cluster bombs in Nagorno-Karabakh. Now, the 2008 Convention on Cluster Munitions bans the production, use, transfer, and stockpiling of these terror weapons that scatter the submunition bomblets over a wide area. And Nobel Peace Prize laureate Jody Williams called cluster munitions the most important disarmament humanitarian convention in over a decade. The bomblets are brightly colored. Children tend to pick them up thinking it's a toy, and they lose their hands or worse. All right, we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, area code 512-248-8252, and we're going to start with Ray in Arizona. Hello, Ray. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Mike, can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're on the air.
Okay. Yeah, I've listened to your show for several years, and I figure that most of your listeners don't go far beyond the mainstream media, and their worldview is such that they believe that this election is something that, well, I may or may not vote for Trump, or I don't care. Or, in other words, it's just an election, and if they lose, we got 4 more years and we'll come back. And I'm saying that, no, this is much more than that. This is not even the most important election in our history. The 2016 was the most important. If Trump hadn't won, that there wouldn't even be an election this year, that there wouldn't even be a United States as we know it by now.
Yes.
And that's the thing that most people just they just don't see that as even being possible.
Well, I agree with you. Well, the 2016 election was a turning point where an outsider got in, and we saw the reaction of the insiders to that. And, you know, they are dead set against letting Trump have another 4 years. They're not even trying to hide the vote fraud that's going on. And I'm very concerned that if the numbers do go toward Trump beyond what the vote riggers can handle, that we are going to see violence in the streets of America. But I think this election, for that reason, is just as important, if not more so, than 2016. And, you know, we need everybody to get on out there and vote. You know, because it's going to come down to just a handful of votes that are going to make the difference here. It's that close.
Well, you might hear the difference being is that I'm saying that it was pre-planned to terminate this country with HRC as president. I'm talking about the final 16-year plan that Obama was to set up, you know, us to be taken out by an HRC presidency. I'm not talking about, well, things are getting bad, or I'm saying that this was all planned. And this was all, we were supposed to start a situation where the UN was patrolling the streets of the United States. After we had lost or were losing a war, the Fed was to pull out, was to collapse its currency. This was all part of that plan. And it was disrupted by Trump winning the election. And that's why you've seen, over the last 4 years, them trying to do everything to take him out even before he took office. Okay? You never saw 6 potential wars in 3 years. We've never seen that in history. Why? Because it was planned. They did everything they could to try to trip him up to get him out of office because he disrupted their plan. Okay? So,
well, I think the plan is still intact here because, if in the aftermath of next week's election, if chaos does break out, then the liberals, the far left, can go ahead with their plans for a communist revolution with the help of the United Nations.
Well, yeah, but, they don't really have the grassroots support. What we're seeing is Soros financed operatives and, mercenaries. And if there is a chance for anything major to happen, we're seeing credible reports of 70,000 plus Chinese troops in Canada. We've seen multiple reports of that.
That's pretty much not substantiated.
Well, that depends. Like I said, if you stick to the mainstream media, they're going to tell you nothing is verified. If you go into the QAnon type level of sources, then it's there. It's totally there by multiple sources.
Well, QAnon appears to be a psyop. QAnon appears to be a psyop, and I think if there were that many Chinese troops in Canada, we'd be hearing from the Canadians about it right now.
Well, look at who they have leading. Trudeau is just as bad as Newsom. These people are all controlled and dominated by communists, from the Feinsteins to the Trudeaus to the Newsoms. The West Coast is primed. They own half the West Coast. This plan has been in place for decades. And this is their only chance. Trump is prosecuting them. It's either them or us, and they know it. So, this idea that this is just an election and we might win, these people, they don't realize how serious this whole situation is. That's just my message.
Okay, well, thank you for the message here, and thank you for the phone call. We're going to switch over to David in Boston. Hello, David. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Aloha, Michael. Hey, Michael. A lot of the callers that call into your show, they also call into other shows, and a lot of the callers that call into your show call in on Saturday morning to Farron Show in the alternative media.
Yes.
Do you ever listen to that show at all?
No, I'm sorry to say I don't, because I have other things going on the weekend.
Oh yeah, sure. You deserve your weekends, Michael. You deserve to take a break from talk radio. That's for sure, you and Claire. But anyways, Mike, I think I can maybe clear up a little bit of a misunderstanding. There's guys like me, and I think Paul from New Jersey, and maybe Clarence from West Virginia and stuff. But we talk about we're indifferent to the Republicans and the Republicans, and we talk about maybe casting a vote for the Constitution Party if we can. I guess this year the candidate is a fellow named Blankenship, but he's not on the ballot up here in Massachusetts. But I think, and this is nothing personal, this isn't any kind of a personal attack on anybody, but just by means of way of education, like maybe, for example, Miles from Maine, because he was, he was insulting, using words like stupid and, hey, yeah, you're a genius. It's about, I think, not about me, but some other caller that said he was going to vote for the Constitution Party. But, Mike, I was involved in creating a third party up in Alaska. I think I mentioned this before.
Yes, you did.
Show the Alaskan Independence Party. But I think, people have to learn. I don't know how old Miles is from Maine, but he's he's using some pretty harsh language, calling people stupid and using the word genius sarcastically, saying the Constitution Party's only, and it wasn't my call, it was some other caller that called in that was going to support the Constitution Party and saying they can't win, they're only on the ballot in 36 states, so you're going to vote for them, genius, huh? And call them stupid and everything, and I forget what caller it was, but the thing is, I think what Miles doesn't understand, Michael, is if some of us vote for the Constitution Party, if we only get 1%, of the popular vote, we've won the election. And what I mean by that, and that's why our votes really count, voting for a third party, because you have to, a third party has to get at least 1% of the popular vote. And I'm sure you're familiar with this, Michael, but the ballot access rules and regulations and laws to gain ballot access in the next election. So that third party will be on the ballot in the next election. Other than that, they have to do all that painstaking, heavy lifting work of collecting thousands of signatures to gain ballot access. So, we're not stupid, Miles. We don't expect to win the election, but what we hope by voting for the Constitution Party, we want to keep the Constitution from disappearing into the memory hole. We want to keep the U.S. Constitution in the public political discussion, and the best way to do that is to support the Constitution Party. Otherwise, it'll disappear in the memory hole. But I will say this about Miles and this Republic crud. I guess Miles probably supports a Republican like George Bush, who called U.S. Constitution just a GD scrap of paper, and he didn't say GD. He took God's name in vain. It's just and then he was looking up between us. You probably saw this, Michael, when he was said that there was no weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq. He's looking up between his legs like he's looking up his rectum. Do you ever see that? Then he comes up and says, "Well, they're not up there. They're not up his butt."
That was during the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Yeah, and this, and then even Mike, when you had Ammon Bundy on, just when Ammon Bundy was talking about Lavoy Finnegan being shot 3 times in the back in cold blood by the FBI, you had to go to a commercial break, and then when you came back, Ammon didn't pick it up after the break. He didn't pick it up. I was hoping to hear more about the FBI, but yes. But this mafia don of the New York City Cosa Nostra. A man wrote a book. I don't know if you ever heard of this book, Michael. I got to hear by H.B. Grushakow. And it's called Mafia Don, and it's about Donald Trump. He talk, and Biden's a piece of crap, but he talks about what has Biden done in 45 years? Hey, I'll tell you what Mafia Don has done in 45 years. He's laundered money through all these gambling casinos. He's a Mafia Don. But he's the Don of the New York City Cosa Nostra. And his whole life, he's been laundering money through his Cosa Nostra gambling casinos. He's a 33rd degree Mason of the Scottish Rite. That's why he's built that fancy golf course up in Scotland in honor of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Mm-hmm. And but what's most despicable, he appointed that William Barr as Attorney General, and that when they were going to prosecute Lon Horiuchi, that filthy Jap sniper that shot Vicky Weaver.
Yes.
And he also shot Randy Weaver in the back.
Yes.
And Randy Weaver wasn't carrying a weapon with him, but that William Barr is the one that developed the policy that no FBI snipers can ever be prosecuted for killing innocent people. So it's because of that William Barr also that creep that shot Lavoy Finicum in the back 3 times will never be prosecuted. But I'm so, I don't know how old like a guy like Miles is, and he seems like a very nice gentleman and everything. And I don't know how old he is. He might be a young fella, but I just say, Miles, take heed unto thyself, because when you point the finger of stupidity and calling other people morons and everything, you've got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself. And I think you have a lot to learn about how politics work in America. We know the Constitution candidate isn't going to become president, but what we're hoping is that they'll get at least 1% of the popular vote so that they'll be on the ballot in the next election. Let's keep the U.S. Constitution as part of in the public square, as part of the public discussion in these political campaigns. Otherwise, that Constitution, without the Constitution Party, our Constitution will really just disappear into the memory hole, Michael. But they're scum. They're all scum, Michael. That Donald Trump. He talks about the Biden crime family. Hey, it's the Trump crime family too. And they're married into it. They're married into the Cosa Nostra. He's been laundering money for years. He's a scumbag. That Donald Trump.
Okay, David, I hear your rant, and you're coming across as one of those people who calls in to say, well, Biden is scum, followed by 20 minutes of why Donald Trump should not be reelected. The other problem I have is if you're trying to get people to vote for the Constitution Party because of the very name, you're going to be drawing more voters away from Trump than from Biden. And so I'm a little concerned about that.
No, I don't have a political agenda. I'm speaking the truth, Michael. I'm speaking the truth. And like I called into Robert Rayvolt's show, I said, it's time for you guys to step out of your boyhood, step into your manhood, and pick up your arms. Pick up your arms. Yeah, that's right. Pick up your... This political process isn't the solution. They're all scum. If we're going to get this country back, that's when we pick up our arms. No one's going to drain the swamp. We have to pick up our arms, and we have to swamp the drain. We have to swamp the drain. It's called the American Revolution. It's called the Battle Road. Yeah, we're fighters. Right? We don't believe in this phony political process, Mike. I'm not trying to do anything political. I'm just speaking truth, Michael. I have no, I'm just saying, I'm just telling you why I vote for the Constitution Party.
Okay, David, we got to take a break. David,
vote for that filthy scum if you want to, Michael.
We got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the phones now to Bruce in Texas. Hello, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yes, hey, aloha. There's some very serious issues surfacing over here in Texas concerning voting fraud in Harris County, which is the largest, pretty much the largest county here in the state.
Yes.
And it's being suppressed by Twitter. Now, Fox News has today they published an article on it. Poll watcher submits affidavit alleging Houston judge and election staff committed voter fraud.
Yes.
They're taking stacks of fake IDs or at the polling place, and there's a sworn affidavit by a retired police officer who was a poll watcher. His name is Raymond T. Stewart. He says that a Houston precinct judge and staff allegedly used a stack of driver's licenses to allow people to vote at a drive-through window created because of the coronavirus pandemic. He says he became suspicious that the unattended stack of driver's licenses sitting on the table constituted a possible crime. He later told someone he knew professionally, Precinct 1 Constable Deputy W. Schultz, what had happened. Okay, and then unfortunately, our conversation was overheard by a staff member in the parking lot. The deputy went inside the polling location. Then the stack was removed and hidden from the table, and so on and so forth. There's also
but he got a photograph of it.
I'm sorry?
He did get a photograph of it before it was removed.
So you know about the story then?
I know about the story. We even talked about it earlier in the show today.
Today you did? Oh, I got in about 15 minutes after you started, so maybe I missed it.
Okay.
But yeah, I just moved here from another location in Texas, and I requested a registration form from the Republican Party through email. They sent me a physical voter registration form, but it was on their letterhead or their form. And so I sent it in, and I noticed that after about 2 weeks, I was still not on the rolls. I called the tax office, and they said, "Oh, well, you didn't fill in a blank for your citizenship, so we had to put it aside." They sent me another one, and I sent it back, and I've been waiting. So I called them on Friday, and the woman who answered the phone knew me my name as soon as I mentioned what the problem was. "Oh, yes, sir, we got it, and you'll be on the rolls." And I checked today, and yes, I am on the voter rolls. I suspect that they know that, that certain form, where it comes from the GOP, and just don't, kind of lose it or say it's not filled out correctly. I mean, this place,
I would not be surprised.
If they steal Harris County and they stole Texas, they steal Texas, they steal the damn election. They steal the election. It influences the history of the United States and the world going forward. It's just crazy.
It is. And again, Trump had 3+ years, almost 4 years, to deal with the mess that is the United States election system, and he failed to do so. And in my opinion, that's probably his biggest single failure, and it may well cost him next week. Anyway, Bruce, we had to take a break here for station identification. Got more callers waiting on the line, and we'll be back after these few words. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, area code 512-248-8252. And I'm already getting emails from people in Canada saying it's nonsense, saying that there are masses of Chinese troops gathering on the border. Let's go back to the phones here to Kevin in West Virginia. Hello, Kevin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hi, sir. Christopher Wray is on my mind when you had brought that story up earlier. And I don't know if you've seen the headline from Fox today, where it said Donald Trump is upset about Christopher Wray for not helping him win this upcoming election. No, the real headline should be Donald Trump is mad at Christopher Wray because he's not doing his job. Wray is, in my eyes, is on the verge of, he covered up child abuse, sexual child abuse.
Yes.
What the hell is all I got to say is the FBI director doing, covering up sexual child abuse? Is he involved? Christopher Wray should be in jail. He's lucky if he gets fired. He should be in Guantanamo with the same as the rest of the freaks that are, raping innocents. It makes me so mad, Mr. Mike.
It does me too. He's guilty of misprision of child abuse, child sexual abuse.
Oh yeah. And then the cherry on top of all of this is, I don't know if you've seen it from National File, Patrick Howey. Not only was he breaking what the previous caller was talking about, voter fraud in Texas, but Joe Biden's own daughter come out and talks about how Joe sexually molested her in showers and everything.
Yes.
What in the world? Are we really that bad? Well, we're ruled by these devil-worshipping pedophiles? It makes me feel like what are we doing? These are the people that rule over us? Come on.
Afraid so.
It's incredible. When I say that, I don't say that in a good light. But this is the reality. Here we have an FBI director covering up for child sex crimes, with a guy smoking crack with a 14-year-old. If you or anybody else, or let's put the shoes on Donald Trump's family. Imagine if it was Eric Trump or Donald Jr., that these were doing about. See how insane this is? And then the media doesn't even, they're covering it up. Twitter, Facebook, all of this. The whole Democratic Party, as well as the FBI, as well as Gina Haspel, that crazy, we're not even going to go there. She should be in jail too, as well as, and I forget the guy's name that just started with an S, the defense secretary. These people should go now, not after the election, now. Yesterday.
Well, we've only got a week more to go, and then, regardless of whether Trump wins or not next week, he's still going to have until January to fire all these people.
I mean, like you just said, fire these people. That's if they're lucky. These are criminals we're dealing with. I mean, criminals that are covering up sex crimes against children. Are you serious? Like this? It makes me so mad, Mr. Mike, that this is the scum of D.C. or the scum of policing. The FBI is supposed to be the world's most premier police thing. Look at it.
Well, that's what they're supposed to be, because that's what Hollywood told us they are. But the reality is they're the American version of the Gestapo, there to basically help clean up the mess of the rich and powerful.
I totally agree. But I didn't know if you've seen the National File report about Ashley Biden's journal being released.
Yes, I did.
Huge. And I think we should get that out there as much as possible to show not only it's Hunter, it's Joe too. The apple doesn't fall very far from the tree.
It really doesn't. And, look at all those videos. I'm sure they've all been scrubbed from YouTube now. But over the last few years, all these videos of Joe Biden sniffing girls' hairs and, inappropriately touching them and whispering in their ear. And, the girls are getting totally creeped out. I mean, that's why he got the nickname Creepy Joe.
Sure. And I have to ask David, one of the previous callers that hated Donald Trump so much.
Yes.
You really want Joe Biden, who is a child abuser, who is incestual with his own family? You really want to vote for that? Really? I mean, if you really want to live like that, go ahead. But no, I'm good. I'm good. I can't. But thank you for the call, Mr. Mike.
You're welcome here. And again, my point is, and I've seen this actually picked up and quoted other places on the net. If Joe Biden can't manage his own family, he certainly cannot manage a country. All righty, we're going to switch over to Layla in Canada. Layla, thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind today?
Yes, Mike, you stated just a few moments ago that Canadians have sent you emails confirming that there are no Chinese troops in Canada, certainly not any that are visible and identifiable as troops. So that was a very bizarre statement. Certainly there are Chinese communists living in Canada as civilians. But that's another matter entirely from what that man was stating. However, I do have a question. Dave made a very broad, wide-ranging summary of what he considers the evils behind the scenes or underpinning not only the U.S. but other countries. I'm here to say that I think we have to tolerate. We are human beings. Human beings are inevitably contradictions and bundles of good and bad to varying degrees. There is always going to be corruption and deceit underlying the pursuit of power at any level, whether it's at the lower levels for small amounts of money or at the upper levels. It just is more likely. The greater the rewards, then the more intense is going to be the elite that pursues power. It's always been there ever since humanity has lived in groups, and it's impossible to avoid. However, I was very alarmed that he would call for young men to pick up arms, and as though that is a very dangerous thing to even say. Because there are people who will follow up on that. The last thing we need is any kind of violence that cannot be predicted or controlled in any way. There needs to be a peaceful transition. Every country evolves. Every political system evolves depending upon its demographics and who is able to influence its trends. But any changes have got to be done peacefully. And anyone who calls for picking up arms is not doing their country a good service.
No, they are not.
Whatever happens after this election, it's not the result of the election that really matters. It's the aftermath. It's how we respond to it. Even if we know that it was rigged, it was not correct, we have got to make the best of it, all of us, because we're all affected by the U.S. inevitably, especially those of us in Canada.
Yes.
Chinese troops.
Please accept my deep apologies for that, by the way.
Relatives in the U.S. that I'm concerned about too. Anyone who calls for militant responses to the outcome and to the corruption that exists is calling for heaven on earth. I mean, it's absurd. It's utopian. It's unrealistic. And I respect Dave. He's obviously very knowledgeable, and he cares very deeply about the country. And much of what he said is valid. I agree with it. In my opinion, there is corruption. All politicians, going back to the days of Washington, there is elitism and corruption. And by the way, I don't know if you're aware that. Never mind. It's another matter altogether. We'll deal with it hopefully after everything settles down after the election. But I would love to discuss the Constitution itself. I mean, it has undergone changes, but those changes have been done lawfully through amendments.
Yes.
It's very dangerous to look at one document and say it must never change. It is sacrosanct, as though one worships it as though it were a Bible. It is basically a format, a layout, and it has to be revised legally according to the changes in the demographics and the social evolution of the country.
Yes, I agree.
Anyway, that's all I want. I wanted to respond initially just to that rather bizarre comment about Chinese troops, but that was unnecessary. Others have told you what I'm saying. So I just hope everyone responds in a very peaceful manner and makes the best of whatever the outcome is.
Well, my view is the first American Revolution was fought with muskets, and the second American Revolution is going to be fought with keyboards.
I agree with you. It's hopefully it will be fought with keyboards and with other peaceful methods. And the other important thing is with finding ways of having legitimate elections, because without legitimate elections that can be trusted, there is no democracy.
No, there isn't.
Whatever democracy means. I mean, democracy means different people to different things to different people. But more than anything else, we've got to avoid bloodshed and the madness that arises out of bloodshed.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I know everything you say is filled with responsible concern, and I do admire your approach to things. Even as you alert us to the dangers, you always keep a level head, and I admire that, Mike.
Well, thank you very much.
Take care, and best wishes to all. Bye for now.
All right. Well, thank you, Layla, for the phone call here. And, our election system in general, and especially this year, would make a banana republic blush in terms of its crookedness. All right. We're going to go to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Yes. Aloha, Michael. I would just like to share with David from Massachusetts, before you take the speck out of my eye, you might want to look at the rainforest in yours.
I love that.
David calls here constantly screaming, yelling, disrupting the show with all of it, by the way, and calling people scumbags and everything. And you're going to talk about 3 fingers point back at somebody? Well, there must be 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 toes, 2 feet full of toes, and 2 hands full of fingers pointing back at you. You scream and call everybody names with every call, with every single call that he makes. And I've never called anybody stupid. I might have said that it is stupid to vote for someone in an independent party that's not on the ballot in all the states. That's not even a protest. That's just nonsense, in my opinion. That makes no sense. And like I told David, and I've mentioned, not David personally, but on the show, if you're all that mad, instead of wasting your vote, voting for somebody who's not even on the ballot in all these states, and then we don't even know half of their positions all the time because most of them have never been elected to anything. But instead of wasting your time, why don't you get in the Republican Party and take over a district, a congressional district, and be the chair? And then you start talking to people, and then they start talking to people. And then the next thing you know, you might have several hundred or even several thousand people from a district, and then maybe you can change the Republican Party. But you're not doing anything trying to do something with a group or an organization that can't even get on the ballot. What are you going to do? Try and win a presidential race, and you're on a handful of states in the country, and you're worried about getting 1% of the vote? I mean, give me a break, David. Think about what you're talking about, because it doesn't make sense. It is senseless to think in that fashion and think you're going to do something. All you're going to do is spoil an election.
Yes.
We know Trump's not perfect, but it's not about Trump anymore. It's about, are we going into socialism, communism, or are we going to try and maintain the few rights we had? Now, let's see. All these people complained about Trump's first term where he had everybody in the world and then some in his way. And now what's he doing? What have we hoped that he would do this second term? He'd make some of these replacements. We don't know what Trump's thinking, and we don't know the pressure he's under. He may very well not be able to get rid of these people he wants to at the time. They might be clogging up something. Trump might be trying to get something else passed or in the works. And they're saying, look, if you get rid of this guy, that guy, we don't know. We don't know the inner negotiations. But, we know the differences. Trump said that the vaccine issue, it would be up to the individuals. Biden said it would be mandatory. There are several differences. So it's not about, even really, in my opinion, about Trump or Biden, about are we going to maintain any form of workability or are we going to choose between communism and freedom? It's not even about Trump and Biden, because we see where they're going now. They're headed straight into globalism, backed by George Soros and several of these other globalist billionaires.
Well, Trump does not come across as a globalist. That's one of the reasons the globalists hate him, because he wants America to be first. He's a strong nationalist, which I think is one of the things that propelled him into the White House in 2016.
Exactly. And, these people that think, I don't, there's nobody they're going to be 100% happy with. I don't care if you had Thomas Jefferson here, they'd complain about him. I hear people all the time say how the Constitution was set up to fail. I don't think so. Being as old as it is, it seems like it had some pretty good durability until these people, it was when these people started complaining about Joe McCarthy in terms of getting rid of the Committee on Un-American Activities. Well, when we had all that stuff, we didn't have this stuff going on.
No, we didn't.
We have this kind of stuff. And so, you can say what you want, but history has shown. So, David, I'd just like to remind you of these things, because you do make some good calls, but for you to sit here and say that I call people stupid, no, I might say that is stupid. I don't attack anybody personally. I mean, I don't call anybody stupid, and I'm trying to think of what else he said I call them, but genius. I said, and I said it's not genius to do something like that. I said, where's the genius in that? Or that could have been when I called another show too. And like he said, he might have heard me on that show. He said he listens to different shows. He might have heard that on another show. But I've never been on any show. I know I've never been on this show and called anybody directly stupid.
Okay, well, that's good.
Action. Yeah, taking a certain action might be stupid, but I'm not going to call somebody stupid, because that's someone's opinion, and to them that might be the best thing in the world to do. You know what I mean? And I'm not going to judge what their motives are. But I know this. Not voting for Trump would definitely just deliver the election to Biden, especially when it's already so corrupt with this voting and everything that we've seen the Democrats do. And with that, Michael, I don't want to take up your time. Thank you. Have a great show.
Well, thank you very much for the call. We're going to go over to Chance in West Virginia. Hello, Chance. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind? Chance, are you there? Going once? Going twice? Oh, there you are. There we are. Okay, I can hear you now. You're on the air. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Biden is controlled by Soros, but Trump is controlled by Adelson and the Kushners. See the connection there?
Yes.
I agree with David from Boston. He's right, as is Jim from New York and Paul from New Jersey. And what Layla said, unfortunately, you don't and can't deal peacefully with communists. History undoubtedly proves that. And let's remember this. They wouldn't make strawberry ice cream if everyone only ate vanilla and chocolate. And, by golly gee whiz, I just feel so comfortable that I want to elect a candidate from the two major parties who want to outdo each other by kissing the tushes and catering to every other racial group except mine. Now, that's my kind of politician. And the real kick in the ass is, they don't even mind telling me so in so many words. Isn't that a nice how do you do? That's what I think of the two major political parties, and thank you for taking my call, Michael.
All right, well, thank you for the call. We got to take a break for commercials. More callers waiting on the line. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go back to the phone lines now to Dan in Washington State. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for taking the call. I wanted to comment. The caller a few calls ago was talking about this rumor that Biden molested his daughter. And, these are pretty low-class rumors, and there's no proof for them. Calling a guy a child molester. I mean, his daughter's dead. Dan, they're just spreading this rumor.
Dan, it's not a rumor. It's written in the daughter's diary, and there is apparently an audio recording of her confirming that the diary is hers and is genuine.
She's dead. I haven't seen that, so I don't know.
It's on the front page of what really happened.
Is it? Well, I don't know. Some of this stuff. My point is that in America, mass murder is okay. You don't need to go after Biden for stuff like that. You could always point to basically getting about 20,000 people in Ukraine killed.
Mm-hmm.
Funding ISIS and Al Qaeda. And I mean, how many hundreds of thousands of people have been murdered and raped and all this stuff because of that policy? But they can't go after him for that because both parties are in on it. Basically, mostly the Democrats.
Yeah.
But,
the same appears to be true. The same appears to be true of these deals that Hunter and Joe were making with Ukraine and Romania and Russia and who all else, China. And they should be prosecutable. But again, it's now appearing that a lot of politicians on both sides of the aisle were sort of dipping into this well of wealth. And that may be the reason the FBI sat on the laptop since last December. But even without the accusations coming from the daughter, the photographic and video evidence on Hunter Biden's laptop, I think is very damning. Now, I get a very bad visceral gut reaction to the idea that he has been abusing underage girls. But the real issue, I think, for the American people is and should be this selling of influence around the world. Apparently, Mexico's now on the list of countries that made deals with the Bidens for increased access and influence.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about this, the Biden, how bad a guy. He sounds like a loser. Underage, I don't know. How young were they? I mean, were they just like 17 and he was in China
14.
or something? And
14. The niece that Hunter was posing with was 14 at the time.
Oh, yeah, I haven't looked into all that. Maybe it's worse than I thought. But
I have. That's my job.
Murder is worse, though. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, you could go after Biden for hundreds of thousands of people being killed, and the government and our media doesn't go after that either because they're part of the big lie too. So
yeah, they absolutely are. They absolutely are. But what that tells us is if you vote for Biden, you can count on more wars and more people being killed by the millions.
Yeah, his foreign policy is horrible. So,
yep.
And Obama got away with it too. You know, they don't even mention Libya when they talk about Obama. You try to talk to an Obama supporter and tell him he destroyed Libya and funded ISIS and all this stuff, and they just deny it, you know, and the media.
Yeah, they just keep repeating Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad.
Right.
Like the brainwashed little
have a good day.
they are. All right, well, thanks an awful lot. Thanks. We're going to switch over to Joe in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. Boy, I've been on the phone a while, and I just wanted to respond to so many people, but I'll stick to what I called about, which is the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And what a fantastic victory we're going to have tonight with Trump putting 3 constitutionalists, originalists, on the Supreme Court. Now, I know they're going to disappoint me sooner or later down the line, these judges, but that's good. That's what I want. I just want them to be originalists and to interpret the law, not to legislate from the bench. And
I agree.
This is the great victory that he's appointed 3 originalist constitutionalists to the Supreme Court. And yet, I hear Dave and I hear the guy from West Virginia, Chase, the so-called Constitutional Party lovers or supporters. They can't see in front of them that Trump is appointing 3 constitutional judges to the Supreme Court, not judicial activists like you'd get from the Democrats. Yet, they're just the same. Trump's just the same. In your face tonight, you're going to have another 3 times slapped in the face, Dave. 3 times slapped in the face, Chase, with a constitutional judge for the Supreme Court. I mean, what part of victory don't you understand? This is not the same. You know who Biden's going to put on the Supreme Court? He said black women judges. There's like 3 of them, federal judges. They're radical.
Joe,
they're going to legislate from the bench. Yes.
Joe, I got to put you on hold. We've got to take another break for commercials. We'll be back with Joe and more phone calls after these few words. Welcome back to our show here, and Fox News just ran a story here where Joe Biden is saying that all the allegations about Hunter Biden and his kinky sex and corruption, it's all a Russian plot. Been there, done that, didn't buy the T-shirt. Okay, Joe in Tennessee, can you pick up where you left off?
Well, Mike, you know, I used to be an idealist, more along the lines of a constitutionalist. I even gave a speech for the Constitutional Party in Florida about 9/11 back when I was a 9/11 activist. But, you know, I've become pragmatic. And I look at, like I said, with Trump and what he's achieved as a constitutional idealist, but as a pragmatist. And like I said, getting 3 Supreme Court justices that are, you know, that are going to be strict constitutionalists and not legislate from the bench is a huge victory for us.
I agree.
I read a story the other day, and I think this kind of shows a little bit about Trump, and it was about the deaths in Afghanistan. Well, under Republican Rhino President Bush, there was 650. Under Democrat Obama, Antichrist, there was 1,750. And under Trump, there was 63. Now, 63 is too many. Should be none. 63 is in the right direction. And it's a hell of a lot less than the other 2 presidents that preceded Donald Trump. And probably if Trump immediately called the troops out of Afghanistan a week after he was president, he probably would have been assassinated like Kennedy. And that number would probably be back up to 800 or so. So when you see numbers like that, it kind of, as a pragmatist, a lot of my anti-war protest type friends are angry at Trump because he hasn't ended the wars. I have to be more pragmatic about it and say that he's working definitely in the right direction. I mean, do we still hear about wedding parties being bombed in Afghanistan anymore? Remember how that would always happen?
Yes.
All the Syrian Christians being slaughtered. Yet all these people, they call up Trump like he's the same, as Biden is. And it insults our intelligence when you do that. I mean, come up, I can agree. Like, I can understand you attacking Trump for different reasons. I've called in and attacked him about Barr and not arresting BLM and things like that. But be reasonable. I mean, there's a huge difference between Trump and Biden. A gun, you want to keep your guns? You want to get flooded with illegal immigration? I mean, I could just go on and on about the differences between. You're going to see it if Biden wins. Boy, you're going to see really what the difference is. And
Yes.
You're not going to like what you see. And I probably won't call in anymore because it's going to be I told you so. And I just like to leave on one thing about Layla. I like Layla, but Layla
Yes.
showed that she's a true Canadian. We're Americans. We use guns to get our independence from the King and Queen of England, where I think you're still affiliated. You know, we're rebellious. We don't take a lot of crap, excuse my French, and we fight.
Mm.
We're fighters. And you know, I'm not going to be lectured by a Canadian about not resorting to violence if violence is the only thing left to maintain our republic. So I just, you know, like I said, I like Layla, but she's too much of a Canadian in my book. You know, we were started because of a revolution against the crown, the one that you never
that's
had.
what Britain got for dumping all the criminals into the New World, because they were feisty upstarts who didn't answer to authority. And then after the American Revolution, they did the same thing to Australia.
I like Australians. They're my
I do
favorite
too.
of the British people.
Yes, I enjoyed them
But
greatly.
anyway, I'll leave it at that, and have a good day, Mike.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mark in New York. Hello, Mark. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey there. Take you off the speaker, Mike. Thanks for taking my call. I was just thinking today about a couple of things you touched on. But first of all, you know, over the weekend I heard Biden clarify the free education are for those that qualify. So remember those. Remember
Yes.
that, people thinking of tertiary education. Regarding revolution, I think activists and Antifa shouldn't bite the hands that feed them.
I agree.
Driving around upstate New York a while back, I noticed that the water reservoirs look pretty low. And, you know, and I was watching how all the heartland is all red. And then even in Pennsylvania, it's all red, except for those Democrat cities where they're all piled in like sardines. And I'm just thinking like Roman history with these Germanic barbarians just hanging
Yes.
outside, trashing aqueducts and just snoozing and letting them starve. I mean, I could even see how just a simple strike on some of the transportation and getting farm goods and meats and all the stuff that the city, they're not growing it in the city, and they're piling
they're
on
not.
top of each other. You know, they're going to have
It's amazing how dependent the cities are on the farmlands, and yet they look down on farmers socially.
Yeah, and they're trashing all of them. And if they do start getting out there, what I've heard is some of them are prepared to defend themselves.
Yes.
You know? And then I remembered the wall. You know, they're all making fun of it. It's a to me, it says it's a psychological line in the sand saying no. For decades, they're like, yeah, we're going to build it, nah. And then everybody's like, nobody cares. You know, the Mexicans are coming across, but no, we have resolve. Every foot is creating more resolve, and there's a seriousness to it. It's gaining momentum. And Dustin's author of that book that went across telling how they took over Libya and all that stuff. I forgot to say that there's YouTube videos of her just sitting with her glasses on. But I just wanted to say her two quotes were, hey, she's going to build a taller wall, just build a taller ladder. It's a fool's folly. It's about the resolve. It's about showing that we're serious and we're willing to put our foots down and try something. So I think it helps them to think twice. In regarding
the illegal immigration problem could be stopped cold by simply not giving free stuff to the illegal immigrants when they come on in. If they can't get food, they can't get water, they can't get gasoline, they can't get jobs, they're going to turn around and go home. I mean, Eisenhower absolutely stopped the illegal immigrant problem in his administration with Operation Wetback, and he had less than 10% of the resources Trump has.
Yeah, and I remember I wanted to bring up the movie that one of the History Channels show about the Great Airlift and the rubber women from World War II. My dad used to tell me about them. You know, you felt horrible for them. Everything on that show about that airlift, they said it was massive how they took all the people, and all the Germans were left there to help rebuild the cities and stuff. And you were talking about how there were rebel women in one of the Middle Eastern countries complaining that the husbands and the men aren't coming back to help rebuild their bombed-out cities. And I thought, hey, Europe did it. You know, they came together and they did it all. But I just think this birthright citizenship is going to come up, and I'm 100% behind Tennessee Joe, saying that you know, that at least we have a chance that there's some original people, because I believe that it's going to probably be Levin's Landmark Association, I think he calls it, that are going to push it. If it's not him, somebody else, some other group has got to bring up the question and say, what does that mean? And luckily we'll have a fair shake, because I personally feel that the progressives have been taken over since the early 20th century. And they got, by the 50s, they were in, they created all this stuff. They've taken over the universities, the doctors, whatever, the colleges. And now you've seen it. It's a mess. And when you look at, you look at what it's done to us. I wanted to mention that on NRP on Saturday morning, they had a joke saying, back at the last State of the Union, all the women were dressed in white on the Democrats, but on the GOP, all the men were white. You know, and that was the joke, you know. And I just think, and I looked at it, I invite everybody to look at the picture. When you look at the demographics of America, the complete demographics, it's out of whack on the Democrat side. You know, it doesn't look like, because that's inner city. To me, the House right now is mob rule. And that's why it's out of control, and you get all these. And I could go on more about that, but I think I've said enough. I got my points for today, except for taxing the rich, I guess. Again, you could have a flat tax. The Japanese do it. I agree with, I was thinking over the weekend when Mark from North Carolina had called in and said, just tax these guys. I say reinvesting in the country. What if everybody, they had a choice, all right? Either the government's going to take it, or you give it to your employees, which, talk about trickle down. Imagine if everybody's wages had to go up because the government cut them off. And I got to look into find out how the Japanese did it, because apparently their CEOs don't get this amount of money. And again,
no, they don't. It's
Yeah,
CEO pay in Japan. It's slightly above the ordinary workers, but it's not the billions and billions that we see here in the United States of America. Anyway, Mark, I'm going to let you go here because we're getting close to the end of the show, and we got a bunch of calls to get through. So let's go to Tom in Florida. Hello, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Michael, good day to you. Aloha. First off, let's get the fracking the lying Joe Biden and his son. And this so Dan understands, there's a lady out there called Tara Reid, Michael. Have you heard of her name?
Yes.
Well, Tara Reid was on today on one of the radio shows I listened to, and she's telling the real truth. She's a full-blown Democrat. So all your listeners that are saying Trump this and Trump that, this woman's a full-blown Democrat, and she says Biden was all manhandling her and all this other stuff. And then did you see last night when Trump played the video in New Hampshire of his at the pool when the kids were touching his blonde, hairy legs?
Yes.
You heard about that, Mike?
I heard about that.
Yeah. Yeah, Trump's getting smart. He's doing that Jumbotron stuff. That's what the people need to see. But here's what I really want to get to now, Mike. Let's talk about this. During the debate, and by the way, that guy Dan and all the other callers in these blue states, their states are lost, Michael, for probably the next 20, 30 years. But I want to say in New Jersey, they had a big Trump parade. Did you hear about that?
Yes.
In Jersey, they had a big Trump parade. And I think it was it Beverly Hills. And they put a big sign next to Hollywood.
And the corporate media is not covering these things. They're all scrambling to make it look like Joe Biden has a following. And it's like I said about his appearance in Pennsylvania today. Somebody made the mistake of panning the audience, and it was like 20 people.
That's right. But here, Mike, here's what I really want to talk to you. Fire up some of your callers and fire up your audience. In the Miami Herald today, Mike, in the Fort Lauderdale Sun-Sentinel, just so you know, you can archive it, they have a thing on in the paper today that there are 7.6 million Jews in the United States, Mike.
Yes.
All of the Orthodox Jews in New York, 90% of them are going to vote for Trump. You have this Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz down here in Wasserman, this Yenta, okay, down here in Florida, saying how corrupt Trump is, but she ain't said it. Look at the kettle calling, what is it calling the kettle black? This Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz, but she was with the DNC, with Hillary.
Yes.
She's saying that Trump's corrupted. She hasn't said it. The guy in the radio said, and Jimmy Cephalo, you check out Jimmy Cephalo's show today, Mike. And he's saying, well, what about Joe Biden and his laptop from hell? And she shut her mouth. She shut it. Again, the Herald, and I was listening to the Seth Stuffalo show, and I listened to some of these radio shows down here. This Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz was defending Biden, calling Trump all this crap, but she should be in prison herself with Hillary and Weiner, Anthony Weiner. And they put Weiner on a horse. They put Weiner on a horse naked so he could ride on a horse in a sex ranch up there in, what was it, Tennessee or Carolina? You remember that, Mike?
Yeah, I remember that.
He had to go bareback with no clothes on a horse for a sexual problem. And that's what they should do with this guy, Biden and Joe. Now, getting back to Tara Reid, she's dropping a bomb on Biden, but none of the major networks will talk about it. Nobody. Of
course not.
With Tara Reid. What is disgusting and disgraceful. But here, Mike, you got Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz. You got the Herald saying there's only 7.6 million Jews in the United States. I don't know if that's true. That's what they're saying. I guess you got to fact check it. And then you got some of your callers calling in from these blue states, and then you have that one guy. He'll chase you off the cliff. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Talking about. And Joe was a great call, by the way. Joe always makes some really great points. Sometimes I don't always agree with him, but today and most of the time, 99% of the time, I agree with Joe. He makes great calls. You're getting another Supreme Court constitutional judge on the court, Mike. Okay, what more do these callers that call your show want out of Trump? I mean, what are these people calling your show? A bunch of weird lefties or what? What the heck is going on, Mike? I don't get it.
Well, I think they give themselves away when they call.
Jews are powerful.
I think they give themselves away when they call on in and say, Biden is bad, and then that's the preface to 20 minutes of bashing Trump.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for saying that. That's excellent. And exactly. And, I'm looking at all the different presidents in my lifetime that we had, and you know what? Reagan dropped the ball. He dropped the ball with illegal immigration. Look what they've done in his state. Ronald, look at your state now. I'd like to tell his son that's still alive. Look at your father did to the state of California. 8 million illegals there, getting health care, better Section 8 housing than most Americans, black or white. Who's kidding who here? And your callers are always bashing Trump. What do they want? What do you want, bumbling Biden to take over the presidency? Then you'll really be in shambles. You'll be in total shambles. So I don't get it, Mike. And, one guy hasn't called in a while, and I don't like the guy, but I guess the mask things wore him out. I don't know what's going on. But, look at Jersey, Mike. Why don't they even try to get an independent party going up in that state? An independent party, because there's a lot of independents in Jersey. Mm-hmm. Matter of fact, there's a lot of independents. There's a lot of independents in every state, actually. Every state's got, seems like more independents now than Democrats or Republicans in some ways. What we got to do is reach out to them and, hey, do you really want communism? Do you want socialism? Do you want to end up like Sweden or all these other and you know what? Those countries don't say socialist for long. Look at England right now, Mike. Look at England with going on the Muslim immigration there in England and France.
Yeah, it's getting really ugly over there.
Some areas you get your head cut off. It's absurd. No, a lot of callers that are calling your show, you hammered it right out of the park with a grand slam, Mike. Listen, these callers are calling in. One thing they talk about Biden in 20 minutes, we're ragging on Trump. No, It should be the other way around. It should be the other way, reverse, Mike. I think Trump's done some great things, and like Joe made a great point tonight. At midnight, we'll be celebrating another constitutional judge on the Supreme Court. And I think that's fantastic.
I hope you're right. You know, there could be a last-second surprise that, you know, they could go to some of the GOP senators and, you know, show them the videotapes and photos from Epstein's little island and get them to change their vote at the last minute like they did with Justice Roberts. Anyway, we're coming down here.
Susan Collins is going to lose her seat no matter what. She just lost her seat by voting no against her. She's going to lose her seat, and I hope she does. I hope they put a Democrat in that seat in Maine. Screw Collins. That's all I got to say, Mike.
Okay, well, thank you for the phone call. We got to take our last break for commercials. We've got a bunch of callers waiting on the line, and we'll take their calls as soon as we come back from these words from our sponsors. Welcome back to our show, our last segment of today's Monday program here. We're going to go back to the phones to Dustin in New Jersey. Hello, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Tom mentioned me. I knew he was talking about me because I haven't called in a week. I think it was about a week, right? Mike, I'm not going to talk about Biden and Trump. We all know where I stand with that. I'm not voting this year. But I'm going to talk about, Mike, you got a couple weeks. I hope you're getting ready for the winter because I know cases in Indiana because I look at the numbers. Mike, one thing I do look at is the numbers around the world and in the whole country of ours in Canada. And
no, we're peaking right now.
You know the cases, Mike, you haven't seen anything yet. I think you're going to get what we had in Northeast. And you have, Mike, you have to get ready now to at least not go to the store for every 3 weeks. All you people, West Virginia, all where it gets cold, you got to hunker down, okay? The people who don't believe in man, wear them, keep away from people, you know. But, you know, like when you go to the store, you actually get in people's faces. You know, it's hard not to talk to people, but just get your stuff and go home. That's it, okay? And, Mike, by the way, you heard what happened in El Paso, Texas, right? They're putting a curfew down in El Paso,
I heard
Texas.
that. I heard that.
Yeah, in Utah, Wisconsin. And you heard about France, right? 52,000 cases in 24-hour period. They're 1/5 the population that we are.
Yeah.
So we're weeks, Mike, we're weeks behind Europe. And I want you, Tom, Miles, Mark, Joe, even James, Sebastian from Sweden, all you guys to get ready. If you don't believe it, Don from Arizona, if you don't want to look, guys, okay? This is a serious thing, and look, you don't want to get sick and have to go to the hospital and be turned away because they're dealing with somebody else. Because, you know, they only got a certain amount of medical people to deal with this thing. So, Mike, you and Claire get ready, hunker down, okay? And
yes,
and I'll call in tomorrow. But hunker down, guys, because some of you might think this is fake, but it ain't. Okay.
No, it isn't.
Have a good show. Mike,
all right, thanks a lot, Dustin. We're going to go to Paul in New Jersey. Hello, Paul. Thank you for waiting patiently. What's on your mind?
Hello, Michael. You know, if Donald Trump is such an anti-socialist, why has he presided over a 36% increase in our national debt? He has run up the debt from 19.6 trillion to a current 27 trillion.
Well, a large part of that had to do with the coronavirus.
Yeah, but remember, it was the homosexual economist, John Maynard Keynes, who came up with the concept of the government spending a ton of money and running up a ton of debt to stimulate the economy. And yet, Donald Trump has done this and has run up just about more debt in his almost 4 years, or equal to what Obama ran up in 8.
Okay, well, listen, Paul, I got to let you go. We're at the end of the program. My apologies to everybody sitting on hold who did not get on the air. Please call in tomorrow. Stay tuned for John Stadmiller. Steve Elkins will be joining him with more information to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Please donate. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.